Hi friends, today's lesson is all about Florida, the Everglades. Today we're going to start our journey going around different parts of Florida and learning about what makes our state so special. Our learning goal for today says, I can tell others about the Florida Everglades. The Florida Everglades is our first stop. It's located in southern Florida. Since we know all about reading maps, and this is the state of Florida, can you put your finger on where the Everglades National Park is located? Yeah, it's all the way down at the bottom. There's the arrow pointing to it. This big yellow mass right there is all of the Florida Everglades. Do you think that they're small or big? Yes, it's very large. It actually takes up a big chunk of our state. We're going to find out how big in a minute. The Florida Everglades are a wetland. Well, what's a wetland? Do you have any guesses? Yeah, it's exactly what it says in the name. A wetland is land that's wet. It's actually so wet that it sucks in all the water, kind of like a sponge would if you're trying to clean up some water off of the counter. It takes in all the water and it becomes saturated or full of water. And it's really squishy if you were to walk on it. These areas are called swamps and marshes or bogs. They're all wetlands. And the interesting thing about wetlands, especially in the Everglades, is that when they fill with water, the areas flood, and then when the water is a little bit lower, it goes back down. And some really interesting animals and plants have found their homes in these wetlands. Now, the Florida Everglades, as I told you before, take up a big part of our state. Actually, the Florida Everglades take up 1.5 million acres. That's humongous, goodness gracious. Do you think you could go explore the Everglades in just one day? No way. I mean, you could see a small part of it, but it would take many days to be able to go through and travel through all of it. And actually, since it's so thick with water and plants, you wouldn't be able to see every single part, but you could see quite a bit if you spent some time there. If you went to the Florida Everglades, you'd see lots of plants and animals. There are over 600 kinds of animals that live in the Florida Everglades. I'm going to show you some pictures. You say, oh, I've seen it, and try to name it when you see some different animals that live in the Everglades. Oh, have you seen manatee before? I have an owl that lives right outside my door. He actually hoots all night long. What a beautiful animal. There's a Florida cougar. Did you know that they're endangered? They're almost extinct. They find their homes in the Everglades too. Oh, there's that beautiful blue heron. Oh, of course, alligators love the wetlands of the Everglades. Do you know what this snake's name is? He's a python. Look how big he is. You can find pythons all over the Everglades. And they're actually a really important part of the Everglades right now. Because did you know they don't even belong in Florida? Yeah, they're what we call an invasive species. That means someone brought them here from somewhere else, and as they've been dropped off in the Everglades, they've grown and reproduced and multiplied, and now there are so many of them living there that it's becoming a problem. They're taking up the space in the habitat that other animals that normally live there, that's where they normally survive. So actually, Florida has kind of a problem with these pythons. As you can see, they're so large, so they eat quite a bit. And that's not good for our other friends that live there. There are over 900 kinds of plants. Now, some of the plants that live in the Everglades have cool adaptations or ways that they change their bodies to help them to survive. Let's look at some of these plants and see if you can see any of their adaptations. Yeah, those aren't typical roots that we see of plants, but for this tree, it works in the Everglade. Oh, what a beautiful flower. I bet that attracts lots of insects that help it to grow and survive in the Everglades. Oh, that one too beautiful. This is what it would look like if you're going down a boat through the Everglades. Do you think there's lots of plants there? Oh yeah, you can see that clearly from this picture. Look at those beautiful ferns. I love Spanish moss. That's the stuff hanging from the trees. Isn't it gorgeous? Some pretty cattails. And of course, you're going to find lily pads in a wetland. Now, the Everglades is a national park. That means our country has decided it's a really important area that we want to preserve and keep safe. It's an area that's protected so that the animals and plants can keep their habitat. Now, the great thing about the Everglades is that you can visit the Everglades and you can explore them in many different ways. Something that's really popular to do when you go to the Everglades is to go on something called an airboat. Yeah, do you see where the air is coming from in the airboat? Yeah, look all the way on the back of the airboat. There's a big fan, and as the fan runs, it pushes the boat along the water. This is a fun way that tourists like to come visit the Everglades to explore and see all those different plants and animals. Our learning goal for today says, I can tell others about the Florida Everglades. I hope that you've enjoyed learning a lot about something that makes our state so interesting and cool.